Have you ever been replaced by someone your family thought was better than you? Felt that hollow ache in your chest when the people you love treat you like you don't matter? That was me. And you know what makes it worse? It wasn't a stranger who replaced me. It was my own sister-in-law, an Instagram influencer with 50,000 followers, who convinced my family that I, who had poured love into cooking for 5 years, wasn't good enough. They banned me from the kitchen. Literally. They told me my style was too homey, that they needed something more refined, something Instagram-worthy. And do you know what I did? I gave them exactly what they asked for. I stepped aside, let them have their perfect chef. But 3 weeks later, 3 weeks, my phone rang with a desperate voicemail. My mother, crying, begging me to come back, saying everything had turned into a complete disaster. This is my story. A story about being undervalued by the people who should have cherished you most. About discovering your own worth when everyone around you makes you feel invisible. And about the sweetest revenge there is. The kind where you don't have to do anything. Just step away and let people feel the emptiness you leave behind. Because, in the end, you only realize the value of water when the well runs dry, right? And my family? They drained the well, burned the bridge, and still expected me to be there when they needed me. But as you'll see in this story, sometimes the most important lessons come wrapped in regret. And burnt pie. My name is Jessica Morgan. And if you've ever felt replaced, undervalued, or invisible in your own family, this story is for you, because you're not alone. And there is a way back, but only on your terms. You know that moment when you realize that everything you've done with love for years meant absolutely nothing. Yeah, I lived that. My name is Jessica Morgan. I'm 32, and for a full 5 years, I was the culinary heart of my family. Every gathering, every celebration, every special moment had my touch in the kitchen. And when I say touch, I'm not talking about just anything. I'm talking about hours spent planning menus, testing recipes, waking up at dawn to prepare stuffed turkeys and pies that made everyone's eyes light up. I put my heart into every dish, because for me, cooking was never just about food. It was about connection, creating memories, about saying I love you without needing words. But as you'll see, love isn't always recognized the way it should be. The kitchen has always been my refuge since I was a child. I remember sitting on my grandmother's kitchen counter, watching her transform simple ingredients into true works of art. She used to say that food made in a hurry never feeds the soul, only the stomach. And I carried that with me into adulthood. When I started cooking for family gatherings, it wasn't because anyone asked me to. It was because I wanted to. I wanted to bring that sense of comfort my grandmother brought, that moment when everyone sits at the table, and for a few hours, the arguments stop. The problems are set aside, and all that exists is gratitude. I thought I was building something beautiful, a tradition that would be passed down. Little did I know that traditions can be broken in the cruelest ways. During those 5 years, I became the person everyone called when they needed something special. Birthdays? Jessica handles it. Easter? Jessica's got it. 4th of July? Of course Jessica will take care of the barbecue. And I loved every second of it. Even when it meant sacrificing my weekends, spending my own money on expensive ingredients, and being exhausted after standing for 10 hours preparing everything. Because in the end, when I saw those smiles, those tight hugs, and heard, Jessica, you outdid yourself again, it all felt worth it. Or at least that's what I thought. Funny how we cling to crumbs of validation without realizing we're being used for convenience. The compliments were always there. Yes. This is delicious, Jess. You have a gift. I don't know how you do it all. But now, looking back, I see something I was too blind to notice at the time. Those compliments were automatic, empty, like thanking someone for holding the door. No one really stopped to think about the work, the planning, the care I put into every detail. They just showed up, ate, took Instagram photos, and left. And me? I stayed until midnight washing dishes, storing leftovers, cleaning up the mess 30 people left behind. But it's fine, right? Because deep down, I still thought I was making a difference. How naive. The truth is, when you do something with such consistency, people start to think it's your duty. It stops being a gesture of love and becomes an expectation. It's like that analogy with the air we breathe. No one thanks the air, no one values it, until suddenly it's gone and you start suffocating. I was my family's air, invisible but essential. And when you're invisible for too long, it's easy for others to believe they can replace you with anything. That's exactly what happened. They thought they found better air, something more sophisticated, more deserving of applause. And they threw me away without a second thought. But as you'll discover, some lessons are only learned the most painful way possible. So there I was, at the height of my dedication, planning that year's Thanksgiving with my usual excitement. I had already chosen the recipes, made the shopping list, even set aside the utensils I would use. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite event, that moment when the whole family gathers, when gratitude should be at the center of everything. I was counting the days, imagining the decorated table, the smell of the roasting turkey, the laughter as everyone served themselves. But fate had other plans for me. Or rather, my family did. And when the bomb finally dropped in my face, I discovered that sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't the one you plan. It's the one life serves you on a silver platter while you watch from afar. A satisfied smile on your lips. Karen entered our family like a hurricane disguised as a gentle breeze. My brother David met her at a digital marketing conference and fell head over heels. 3 months later, they were married. 6 months later, she was already reshaping not just his life, but apparently the entire dynamic of our family. Karen had that perfect smile, the kind that looks filtered in real life, Always flawless hair, manicured nails, designer clothes, and that aura of superiority disguised as kindness. She was a food influencer, or at least that's what her Instagram bio said, where she had about 50,000 followers who liked photos of dishes that, as I later discovered, she rarely cooked herself. But numbers impress, right? And my family was completely dazzled. At first, I tried to be welcoming. After all, she was my brother's wife, part of the family now. At the first few gatherings, Karen would compliment my cooking with that exaggerated tone that should have warned me from the start. "Oh my God, Jessica, this is interesting. How brave of you to use those spices." Or, "What a charming rustic style. Reminds me of those little country dishes, I'd smile, thank her, and try not to take it the wrong way. But there was something in the way she spoke, the way she emphasized certain words, that made my stomach turn. It was as if each compliment came wrapped in a hidden critique, like a poisoned gift tied with a bow. And the worst part? No one else seemed to notice. Or if they did, they chose to ignore it. The comments became more frequent and less subtle. One Sunday lunch, Karen brought a simple little salad and made sure to announce that it only had organic ingredients imported from Italy. While everyone tried it and showered her with praise, she looked at my roast chicken and said, "Jessica, you still use those ready-made supermarket spices? How vintage. I personally only use fresh herbs from my garden, but everyone has their level, right?" The silence at the table lasted only a second before everyone laughed, as if she'd made an innocent joke. But I saw it. I saw the sparkle in her eyes, that tiny satisfaction of someone who had just stabbed a knife in, disguised as a friendly jab. And it was in that moment I realized Karen didn't want to be part of the family. She wanted to be the center of it. Thanksgiving was approaching, and I was in the final stages of preparation when Karen began her emotional sabotage campaign. In an apparently casual conversation at my mother's house, she started planting seeds of doubt. "Aunt Margaret, I was thinking, Thanksgiving is such a special, important day. Wouldn't it be amazing to raise the standard a bit this year? I mean, Jessica does a lovely job, but maybe it's time to bring something more sophisticated? More Instagram-worthy, My mother, always too kind for her own good, replied with a hesitant, "Oh, I don't know, Karen." But the seed was planted, and Karen, like the skilled manipulator she was, knew exactly how long to let it germinate before watering it again with more poison. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I got a call from my mother. From her voice, I already knew something was wrong. "Jessica, dear, "We need to talk about dinner." My heart raced. Talk? About what? I always took care of dinner. It was my responsibility, my joy, my contribution. Karen had a wonderful idea, my mother continued. And in that moment, I knew. I knew everything was about to collapse. She offered to cook this year. You know, she has so much experience, that huge Instagram, and she thought it would be a great chance to show her talent to the family. And well, your father and I thought it would be fair to give her a chance. You don't mind, right? After all, you cook every year. You must be tired. Tired? Tired? I had never felt tired doing what I loved. But now, sitting on the couch, holding the phone with trembling hands, yes, I felt tired. Tired of not being valued. I tried to argue, to explain that I already had everything planned, that it was important to me, that it meant something, but my mother had already decided, clearly influenced by Karen's sugary words. "Jessica, don't be difficult. It's just dinner. You can help Karen if you want." Help? Help Karen in my kitchen? At my event? With my family? At that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. Clarity that I had been replaced, discarded, like an old appliance swapped for a newer, shinier model. And you know the most painful part? Realizing they didn't even hesitate. 5 years of dedication erased in a 15-minute conversation. That's when I understood that sometimes revenge doesn't need to be planned. It just needs you to take a step back and let people feel your absence. And believe me, they would feel it. In the days following that call from my mother, I tried to process what had happened. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a misunderstanding, that somehow things would return to normal. But reality is harsh, and it doesn't take long to knock on the door. Karen started posting on her stories about the most epic dinner she was planning, with polls asking her followers which type of turkey was more sophisticated, whether she should do a 5-course tasting menu, and if people preferred French or Italian wine. Every post was a stab disguised as excitement. And the worst part? My own family liked, commented, shared, as if I had never existed. As if 5 years of dedication could be erased with a few well-produced posts and trendy hashtags. The final blow came 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. During a family lunch, I, naively, still attended. I thought it would be an opportunity to talk, maybe reclaim my place. But Karen had other plans. In the middle of the meal, she stood up with all her theatrics and announced, "Everyone, I need to share something. I'm so honored that you trusted me to handle Thanksgiving this year. I promise it will be unforgettable." Everyone applauded. My mother smiled proudly. My father raised his glass in a toast. And me? I sat at the end of the table, invisible, like a ghost in my own family. Then Karen looked at me with that poisonous smile disguised as friendliness and said, "Jessica, you must be so relieved to finally have a Thanksgiving off, right? I can only imagine how exhausting it must be to do this every year. Now you can just relax and enjoy." The way she said, "relax," sounded like, "Your presence is no longer needed." I tried to keep my composure, but something inside me was breaking into microscopic pieces. My brother David, who should have defended me, just agreed. "It's true, Jess. You deserve to rest." And let's be honest, Karen has a lot of experience with this. She works with food professionally. Professionally? She posts pictures, but I said nothing. I just smiled. That forced smile you give when you're dying inside, but don't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing you crumble. Then my mother, trying to be kind but being devastating, put her hand on my arm and said, "Dear, you understand, right? It's nothing personal. It's just that, well, maybe your style is a little too homey for an occasion like this. Karen will bring a more refined touch. Homey. As if the love I poured into my food was something inferior, outdated, insufficient." I left that lunch with trembling hands and eyes stinging with unshed tears. I drove home on autopilot, and when I finally closed the door of my apartment, I let it all out. I cried with rage, humiliation, pain. It wasn't just about dinner. It was about being discarded, replaced, belittled by my own family. It was about realizing that what you thought was your value, your way of contributing, meant nothing to them. They didn't see my effort. They saw convenience. And when a more Instagrammable option appeared, they threw me out without a second thought. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to beg for attention. I wasn't going to humiliate myself trying to prove my worth. If they wanted Karen, let them have Karen, and let them deal with the consequences. The next day, my mother called again, this time in a gentler tone. "Jess, I thought maybe you could bring the wine for Thanksgiving, or maybe a simple little dessert. Nothing fancy, just so you're part of it, you know?" And there it was, the official banishment. I was no longer the family chef. I was the person bringing wine, the one making a simple dessert, as if I were a distant cousin who shows up occasionally, not the daughter who carried this tradition on her shoulders for 5 years. I took a deep breath and, with a calmness that even surprised me, replied, "You know, Mom, I think it's better if I don't bring anything. After all, I wouldn't want to overshadow Karen's professional work with my little homemade things. I'll just show up to eat." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She tried to argue, said I was overreacting, that it was just a dinner. But it wasn't just a dinner. It was respect. It was recognition. And they had just thrown it all out the window. I hung up the phone and felt something strange. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was peace. Cold, determined peace. I had been banned from my own family's kitchen. Perfect. So be it. But they shouldn't expect me to rush back when things went wrong. Because, and I knew this for absolute sure, things were going to go wrong. Karen might have 50,000 followers, perfect nails and rehearsed smiles, but she didn't have what I had. Years of experience, trial and error, knowing every detail of what my family liked. She didn't know my grandmother's secret cranberry sauce recipe, didn't know my dad hated cinnamon in pumpkin pie, didn't know my nephew was allergic to nuts. But she was going to find out. And when she did, when her house of cards collapsed, I would be there. Not to save, but to watch. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting people reap exactly what they've sown. The days leading up to that Thanksgiving were strange. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't in the kitchen testing recipes, waking up early to go to the market to pick the best ingredients, or feeling that mix of nervous excitement. Instead, I was free, and that freedom had a bitter taste I hadn't expected. It's funny how we get used to certain roles in life, and when they're taken away, there's a strange emptiness, like a part of your identity has been erased. But I had made my decision. If they wanted Karen, let them have Karen. I wasn't going to beg, lower myself, or fight for a place that should naturally be mine. Dignity, I learned, is sometimes the only thing you can control when everything around you is falling apart. Thanksgiving arrived, and I went, as promised. I showed up at my parents' house with a cheap bottle of wine. I didn't even bother picking a good one, because why care? And a polite smile plastered on my face. The house looked different. Karen had redecorated it with that minimalist magazine-style aesthetic. Everything beige and gold, scented candles making the place smell more like a spa than home-cooked food. The table was immaculate, Pinterest-worthy, with expensive floral arrangements and linen napkins probably costing more than my rent. But you know what was missing? Warmth. That sense of home, coziness, of welcome to Grandma's house. Everything was too perfect, too cold, too artificial. Just like Karen herself. But no one seemed to notice. Everyone was taking photos, commenting on how beautiful it looked. And Karen was radiant, soaking up every compliment like oxygen. Dinner was served an hour late. Karen had completely underestimated the prep time, something anyone with real kitchen experience would have avoided. But there she was, sweaty, hair less perfect, trying to maintain her smile while carrying the dishes. The turkey was dry, so dry my father needed 3 sips of wine just to swallow the first piece. The mashed potatoes were lumpy and bland. The gravy tasted canned, because of course she used jarred sauce and tried to enhance it with too much wine. The salad was wilted, and her famous pumpkin pie, which she had posted 50 pictures of during prep, was soggy and tasteless. But do you know what everyone did? They praised it. "It's delicious, Karen. What talent! You've exceeded our expectations." Polite lies wrapped in awkwardness. I ate in silence, each bite a quiet confirmation of what I already knew. Replacing someone is easy. Replacing dedication is impossible. After that disaster disguised as success, I thought things would go back to normal, that someone would recognize the mistake, that maybe my mother would call to apologize. But no, Karen had gotten what she wanted, the family culinary throne, and she wasn't going to give it up easily. So I continued my strategy. Acceptance with distance. When they called about other holidays, I simply said, "Oh, I don't know if I can help. After all, you have Karen now, who is way more qualified than I am." I said it without bitterness, without apparent irony, just facts. And you know what's interesting? That annoyed them more than any shouting or drama could have, because deep down, everyone knew they had made a mistake. But pride is a comfortable prison, and no one wanted to be the first to admit it. Christmas came faster than expected, and with it, the first major crisis. 2 weeks before the holiday, Karen had promised a feast that would make any culinary magazine jealous. She even got a sponsorship from a cookware brand to post about the dinner. But 3 days before Christmas, the sponsor canceled. Apparently, her engagement metrics weren't as good as she claimed. Lots of fake followers, little real interaction. Without sponsorship, Karen panicked. Cooking a full dinner for 30 people out of her own pocket? No way. She canceled everything, simply sent a message in the family group saying she had an unexpected issue and unfortunately couldn't host the dinner. The family panicked. It was Christmas Eve. Everyone had confirmed. The kids were excited. And guess who got 3 calls in a row? Me. My mother, my brother, even my aunt called, all with the same thinly veiled plea. "Jessica, couldn't you maybe prepare something for Christmas? Nothing fancy, just a little dinner so we don't leave the kids hanging." I took a deep breath, counted to 10, and said as calmly as possible, "Guys, I would love to help, but remember, I was banned from the kitchen, right? My style is too homey, not refined enough. I'm sure you'll find a solution. Good luck." And I hung up. I blocked messages for a few hours because I know how persistent families can be. That night, while I watched Christmas movies alone in my apartment, they were having delivery pizza. Pizza. On Christmas. The photos I later saw on the family Instagram were tragic. Faces forcing smiles, disappointed kids, and Karen, notably absent from all the pictures. That's when I realized, the sweetest revenge isn't the one you execute. It's the one you let happen, simply staying out of it, and letting chaos run its natural course. January and February passed in tense silence. The family was still recovering from the Christmas fiasco, but no one mentioned the elephant in the room, the fact that Karen had jumped ship and left them hanging when they needed her most. I kept living my life, focusing on work, going out with friends, rediscovering hobbies I had set aside because I was always too busy cooking. And you know what I found? I didn't miss the pressure, the stress, or that constant feeling of never being enough. What I missed was the recognition, the warmth, the genuine connection I thought we had. But when you take off the rose-colored glasses and look at reality for what it is, sometimes you realize that what you thought was love was just convenience in disguise. And that truth, as painful as it may be, frees you in ways you never imagined. March brought Easter, and with it, another opportunity for Karen to prove her worth. This time, she was determined to redeem herself from the Christmas disaster. She spent weeks posting about her Instagram-worthy Easter brunch, homemade eggs Benedict, artisan croissants, fancy quiches, mimosas with exotic fruit. The menu was far too ambitious even for a professional chef, but Karen had that delusional confidence of someone who's never really failed because they've never really tried. The day arrived, and surprisingly, I was invited. Not as the backup cook, as a guest. I went to my parents' house already expecting a train wreck, and I wasn't disappointed. The eggs Benedict were completely raw. Can you imagine cutting into a poached egg and watching that cold, thick yolk ooze out? The croissants were burned on the outside and raw inside, a culinary feat that takes a special kind of incompetence. The kids cried, the adults pretended everything was fine while discreetly pushing food to the edge of their plates. The worst was yet to come. My Aunt Diane, who has a sensitive stomach, ate the eggs out of politeness and spent the rest of the day locked in the bathroom with food poisoning that landed her in the ER that night. Salmonella, the doctor said. Undercooked eggs, something anyone with even the slightest kitchen knowledge knows how to avoid. But Karen, with all her professional expertise, had no idea how to tell if a poached egg was cooked through. The family was shocked, worried, and for the first time, I noticed a few embarrassed glances turned toward me. Not pleading yet, but silently acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, they'd made a mistake by replacing me. But it still wasn't enough. Pride was still in charge, and no one wants to admit they were wrong when the wound is still fresh. So they kept stumbling from disaster to disaster. And me? I kept watching from the front row. April brought my mom's birthday, a date that always meant a lot to me. For years, I'd make her favorite cake, a 3-layer red velvet with cream cheese frosting, decorated with sugar flowers I made by hand. It took hours, but the smile on her face made it all worth it. This year, Karen promised to make something even more special. A 5-tier French-style cake she'd learned in an online workshop. The result? A leaning, edible tower of Pisa that collapsed an hour before the party. Literally collapsed. My sister-in-law sent a video to the family group. Cake layers sliding, frosting dripping down the counter, Karen sobbing in the background trying to salvage something. It was pathetic. And I'll admit, a little satisfying to watch. They ran to the supermarket and bought a generic sheet cake. My mom smiled and thanked them, but I saw it. I saw the quiet tears she wiped away when she thought no one was looking. I saw the disappointment, the longing for what she had, and took for granted. July arrived with the scorching heat, and the traditional 4th of July barbecue, an event I had always coordinated with military precision. Karen, in a desperate attempt to prove she was still capable, insisted on doing the entire menu herself. Burgers, hot dogs, potato salad, skewers, desserts. She refused all help with her usual arrogance. The result was apocalyptic. The burgers were raw inside and burned outside, a biological contradiction only Karen could achieve. She left the potato salad with mayonnaise sitting in the sun for 3 hours on a 95-degree day. 6 people, including my 5-year-old nephew, got severe food poisoning. 3 ended up in the hospital. The party ended with ambulances, adults vomiting, kids crying, and Karen having a full-on breakdown in the backyard, screaming that nothing was her fault, that people were too weak, that she had done everything perfectly. That's when my brother finally woke up to reality. He called me that night, his voice trembling, and simply said, "Jessica, we screwed up. We really screwed you over." That's when the apologies started coming in. Not all at once, but slowly, like raindrops before a storm. Embarrassed messages, hesitant calls, apologies disguised as, "We were thinking about you." But the cherry on top, or should I say, the cherry on the disaster, came 2 weeks after that catastrophic 4th of July. My mom called, and from her voice, I knew it was different. It wasn't pride or defensiveness anymore. It was genuine desperation. "Jessica, baby, I was wrong. We were all wrong. Please forgive me. I can't take any more of these disasters. I miss you. I miss your cooking. I miss your love. And Thanksgiving is coming again. Please don't let me go through this again." And right there, holding the phone, listening to my mom cry on the other end, I realized I had reached the turning point. The moment to decide, do I forgive them and go back like nothing happened? Or do I take this opportunity to set boundaries, to demand the respect I always deserved? The revenge was complete. They had felt firsthand what it was like to live without me. But what I would do with that power, that was the real question. After that call from my mom, I hung up and just sat on the couch, staring at the wall for an unmeasurable amount of time. Part of me wanted to run back, hug everyone, and say it was okay, that I forgave them, that I'd cook again, and everything would be like before. That was the part of me still clinging to the illusion that family is about unconditional love and automatic forgiveness. But there was another part, a more mature, wiser part, forged in the pain of the past months, that said, no, not this time. You don't go back just because they need you. You go back if, and only if, they truly value you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people trample over you again. Healthy forgiveness comes with clear boundaries, and that was exactly what I needed to set. Not out of petty revenge, but out of self-respect. To recognize that my time, effort, and dedication had value. And if they wanted that back, they needed to prove they understood the lesson. In the following days, my phone didn't stop. WhatsApp messages, emails, even a handwritten letter from my mom. Yes, she went that far. My brother David showed up at my door with flowers and red eyes, begging for a conversation. Jess, I was an idiot. Karen manipulated me, but that's no excuse. I should have defended you. I should have seen what she was doing. Please give me a chance to fix this. Seeing my brother, who had always been my best friend as a child, completely broken, affected me in ways I hadn't expected. Because that's the complexity of family relationships, right? You can be hurt, you can be justifiably angry, but you still love these people. You still care. And it's precisely because you care that you need to establish healthy standards. I let him in, made coffee, and we talked for hours. He told me how Karen had changed, how she became obsessed with being the center of attention, how he himself felt suffocated, but was afraid to admit he was wrong. She even posted a photo from the hospital after the food poisoning, blaming people for having weak stomachs. I realized right then that I married someone incapable of acknowledging her own mistakes. The family WhatsApp group, which I had muted months ago, exploded with 47 unread messages. When I finally opened it, it was an avalanche of apologies. Some genuine, some clearly written under pressure. But one message caught my attention. It was from Karen. Jessica, I know I have no right to ask for anything after everything, but I need to admit I was wrong. Completely wrong. I underestimated you because I was jealous. Jealous of how everyone loved you. The genuine connection you created through food. I thought I could buy that with aesthetics and follower numbers, but it doesn't work that way. You have a gift I will never have, and I am sorry for trying to steal your place. I stared at that message for long minutes. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part, the part that had learned the hard way, knew words are easy, actions are what matter, and if I were to return, I would need guarantees, real changes, not just empty promises wrapped in momentary remorse. It took me a week to respond, a week of deep reflection, talking to friends, truly understanding what I wanted, not what the family needed. And when I finally replied, it was a clear, direct message. I'm scheduling a dinner at my parents' house. Everyone needs to be there, including Karen. I have things to say and conditions to present. If you really want me to come back, these conditions are non-negotiable. I set it for a Friday night, gave the date and time, and hung up. My mom replied immediately, "Whatever you want, honey, we'll all be there." The week leading up to that dinner was strange. I was nervous, but also strangely empowered. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to a family gathering as the helper, the problem solver, the fixer. I was going as someone who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to demand it. I mentally prepared what I would say, rehearsed the conditions, and prepared for the possibility that they might refuse, and for the peace I would have with that refusal. The night arrived. I parked in front of my parents' house and took 3 deep breaths before getting out of the car. When I walked in, everyone was there. My parents, David, Karen, visibly uncomfortable, my aunt, my uncle, even cousins who rarely appeared. The living room was heavy with silence, the kind of silence that precedes important conversations. I sat in the main chair, strategic, I know, and began. Thank you for being here. I know the past few months have been complicated for all of us, but especially for me. And before anything else, I need you to understand one thing. I am not the family maid. I am not the person you call only when you need something. For 5 years, I put my heart into every meal, every event, because I loved doing it. But you turned my love into obligation. And when a more sophisticated option appeared, you discarded me without hesitation. It destroyed me in ways you can't even imagine. The room stayed silent, but I saw tears streaming down my mom's face. David looking at the floor, Karen discreetly wiping her eyes. I continued, voice firm but emotional. If you want me to come back, and I say, if, because this is not guaranteed, there are non-negotiable conditions. First, each of you will apologize to me. Sincerely. Looking me in the eye and specifically acknowledging what you did wrong. Second, Karen, you will publicly admit in front of everyone that you underestimated me and that your behavior was inappropriate. Third, from now on, I have total control over any family event I agree to cook for. That means menu, decorations, timing, everything. No interference, no unsolicited suggestions, no, oh, how about we do it this way? Fourth, you cannot criticize my culinary choices. If you don't like something, keep it to yourself or eat elsewhere. And fifth, I paused for dramatic effect, looking directly at Karen. Karen is forbidden from cooking at main family events for the next 12 months. She can bring a salad, a drink, but nothing that requires an oven or stove. The shock was visible, but no one protested. And in that heavy silence of acceptance, I realized I had reclaimed my power, not through cruel revenge, but through self-respect. And this time, they were going to value what they had, or they wouldn't have anything at all. The apologies came one by one, each family member standing, walking over to where I sat, and saying in their own words what they had done wrong. My mom was first, crying so hard she could barely speak. Jessica, my daughter, I failed you. I let outside influence make me doubt something I've always known, that you are special, that your love through your cooking is a rare gift. I hurt you deeply, and I will carry this guilt for the rest of my life. Please forgive me. My dad, a man of few words, held my hands and said simply, I should have defended you. I didn't. I was cowardly. I'm sorry, sweetheart. One by one, each family member acknowledged their part in what had happened. Then it was Karen's turn. She stood, trembling, her face red with crying and shame. Jessica, I don't have words to express how sorry I am. I envied you. I envied the genuine connection you had with this family through your cooking. I tried to steal your place because I thought I could buy love with appearances. But love doesn't work that way. You built something over years, and I tried to destroy it in weeks out of pure ego. I'm sorry. Truly. It was hard not to feel a twinge of satisfaction seeing Karen completely humbled, admitting everything I'd always known. But more than satisfaction, I felt relief. Relief that finally, the truth was spoken out loud. I accepted the conditions. Not because it was easy, but because I saw genuine sincerity in those repentant eyes. And because, deep down, I still loved these people. Wounded love, yes. Love that needed healing, certainly. But love all the same. All right. I accept. I'll do Thanksgiving this year. But remember, you agreed to the rules. And if at any point those rules are broken, I walk and don't come back. I'm doing this for me, not out of obligation. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into planning. But this time, it was different. My mom called to ask, "Do you need help with shopping?" My brother offered, "I can cover half the cost, Jess. You don't have to pay everything yourself." Even cousins who had never lifted a finger sent messages asking what they could do to help. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this endeavor, and that collaboration, that recognition of the work I had always done alone, changed everything. It was no longer about proving my worth. It was about a family finally functioning as it should. Together, Thanksgiving Day arrived, and I woke up without the weight on my chest I used to feel. I got to my parents' house at 6 a.m, and to my surprise, my dad was already up. Coffee ready. Soft music playing. "I thought you'd like to start in peace," he said, hugging me. I spent the day in the kitchen, but not alone. My mom stayed by my side the whole time, not interfering, just keeping me company, handing utensils when I asked, telling stories from her childhood, reconnecting in a way we hadn't in years. David took care of all the cleaning, not leaving a single dish unwashed. The cousins handled the table decorations. Simple, beautiful, without the artificial coldness Karen had imposed the previous year. And Karen? Karen was in charge of drinks, literally only that. And she did it without complaint, without trying to steal the spotlight, with a humility that, I admit, surprised me. Maybe people can change, or maybe she finally understood her place. By 5 o'clock, the table was set and the food ready. Juicy, perfectly roasted turkey, Grandma's cranberry sauce, creamy mashed potatoes exactly how my dad likes them, stuffing seasoned just right, pumpkin pie without cinnamon, roasted vegetables with that caramelized touch. Each dish was a love letter, but this time, a love letter I knew would be read, appreciated, valued. When everyone sat down and we did the traditional round of gratitude, something different happened. Usually people thanked for health, work, generic things. But this time, one by one, each person thanked me specifically. For being there, for forgiving, for continuing to love even after everything. My little nephew, with his childlike innocence, said, "I'm thankful for Aunt Jess, because her food tastes like hugs." And there, in that moment, with the table full of people who finally understood my worth, tears ran down my face. Not of pain this time. Of fulfillment. Of recognition. Of revenge completed. Not through cruelty, but through redemption. But I wasn't going to let the lesson be forgotten. After dessert, when everyone was full and relaxed, I stood up and said, "Before we finish, I have something to show you." I connected my laptop to the living room TV and started a slideshow. Photos of all the culinary disasters of the past months. Last year's dry turkey. Easter's raw eggs. The collapsed birthday cake. 4th of July's spoiled salad. Each image accompanied by humorous captions. "When you think cooking comes with Instagram followers," or "the moment they realized an influencer isn't a chef." The room was silent for a few seconds. And then, laughter. Genuine laughter. Even from Karen, who nodded embarrassed but laughed at herself. "Just to make sure," I said with a smile, "that we never forget why I'm back in this kitchen, and why you'll never take me for granted again." The following months brought real change. Surprisingly, Karen came to me asking for cooking lessons. "Not for posting," she explained, "but because I really want to learn. No cameras, no tricks, just me, you, and the food." I agreed, and we developed an unlikely friendship built on honesty and humility. My family began showing gratitude constantly, not just when they needed something, but in random moments. Messages like, "I was thinking of you," calls just to chat, public recognition on special occasions. And me? I started a cooking blog called Cooking with Heart, sharing not just recipes but stories about family connection, about appreciation, about the difference between making food and making love through food. Karen used her 50,000 followers to promote my blog, and within 6 months, I had surpassed her numbers, with genuine followers who connected with my message. Life has a funny way of balancing things, doesn't it? They didn't value me until they lost me. They had to feel my absence to appreciate my presence. And now they know exactly what they have. And believe me, they will never take me for granted again. Because the best revenge isn't making others suffer. It's making them recognize what they lost. And then, only then, deciding if they deserve to have it back. So that was my story. How I was banned from my own family's kitchen. And 3 weeks later became the most important person in that house again. But do you know what really changed between then and now? I changed. I learned that self-love isn't selfish. It's necessary. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or letting people trample over you again. Forgiveness means giving a second chance, with clear boundaries, with respect, with your value recognized. And most importantly, I learned you don't need to beg for a place that should be naturally yours. If people don't value you while you're there, let them feel the weight of your absence. Because the most powerful revenge isn't the kind that hurts. It's the kind that teaches. Now I want to ask you, have you ever been replaced or undervalued by your own family? Felt like your efforts were invisible? That what you did with love was treated as an obligation? How did you respond? Did you set boundaries? Or did you keep accepting crumbs? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And your experience might help someone going through the same thing. If you're living through something similar right now, let me tell you this. You have value. Your time has value. Your effort has value. Anyone who doesn't recognize that doesn't deserve access to you. Period. Before you go, ask yourself these questions honestly. How many times have you erased yourself to make others happy? How many times have you swallowed your hurt to avoid conflict? How many times have you accepted less than you deserved out of fear of being alone? Life is too short to beg for recognition from people who should give it freely. And if today you're being treated like a second choice, a plan B, the person who only matters when it's convenient, maybe it's time to become the first choice in your own life. To let them feel what it's like to live without you. Not out of malice, but out of self-respect, fairness, and love for yourself. If this story touched you, if you felt anger with me, if you cheered when my family finally realized what they lost, hit that like button. It shows me that this content matters, that these stories matter, that talking about complicated family relationships isn't frivolous. It's real, it's necessary, it's liberating. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Every week I bring real stories of people who learn to value themselves, who set boundaries, who chose self-respect over other people's convenience. Stories of revenge in the best sense, not toxic revenge that destroys, but the kind that empowers, rebuilds, and teaches. Everyone deserves dignity, including you. One last thing I wish someone had told me when I was at my lowest, feeling disposable. Your absence has power. Real power. Sometimes more power than your presence. When you're always there, always fixing things, always carrying the weight, people get used to you. They take you for granted. But when you step away, when you stop carrying the burden alone, when you let things crumble without you there to hold them together, then they understand. Then they wake up to reality. So, if you're tired of being invisible, try disappearing for real, not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet dignity. And watch. Watch how things change when you're no longer there to fix the mess. Scary? Yes, but freeing. Because finally, you discover who truly cares, and who only cared about what you did for them. Now tell me, would you have done differently? Would you have gone back to your family after everything? Or would you have cut ties completely? What would your revenge have been? Share in the comments. I love reading different perspectives, and maybe your insight will help someone make a life-changing decision. I'll see you in the next video with another real story, more lessons about self-love, and proof that you should never accept less than you deserve. Big hug, and remember, you are irreplaceable. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.